Yo, we're live.
Okay. Oh my goodness, I feel like okay, and this is so bad. Oh my gosh.
You're doing good.
I'm trying to, and then I can hear us in the background.
Hello, and welcome to Right on 14th. My name is Mike Barr.
And I am Christina, the one and only.
And today on Right on 14th, your local podcast for all things happening in the 14th Congressional District, we have a very special guest. Her name is Christina, and she is the brand new executive board member for our 14th Congressional District Republican Party.
Thanks,
it's
Mike.
amazing. She got voted in unanimously yesterday at the 14th Congressional District Republican Party meeting. And I think that that's something to be proud of.
Yes, me and one other person. So it was wonderful.
I think so. So
Yes.
Watch out. We got position of power over here, and she's going to rule with an iron fist. Be careful and do not cross Christina.
Thank you. I'm very scary for those who know me.
It's terrifying.
Who can't stop laughing.
Yeah, exactly.
Joker.
Also, at yesterday's 14th Congressional District Republican meeting, we had a couple special guests. So there was Sandy Pensler. He is running for federal Senate, and also Mr. Guzman. He's running for Secretary of State. So the 14th Congressional District meetings are always a good time. They always got good speakers. It's always a good crowd, and we always go to the Coney Island, so the food's always good. I don't know. What'd you think? It was a good time?
Yeah, no, it was a really interesting meeting, as usual. Like you said, we always have interesting guests. And so if you guys are free, you should come out to our meetings. I just stuttered there. But, yeah, they're really great. But nevertheless, it was interesting listening to Sandy Pensler talk. He had a really interesting message, interesting background. We did a breakdown on the candidates before. And I believe next month we're going to have John James, the other Senate candidate. One of the others, shall we say, because there's three, him and those two and Bob Carr.
Yep.
To my knowledge, are all, am I correct? There's only three?
I think there's only three. And honestly, they're all really good candidates. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes down, especially in the primary.
It is because they're business owners.
Yeah.
Running up against each other. So
I like that the Trump era has brought out a whole bunch of business owners of like, I am not a politician, I am a business owner, and that's what the government needs.
Yeah, I think that's really important. When you have people who've been in political power for years and years and years, and that's their career, they're not thinking about the American people. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about it's self-preservation. You know, humans by nature, we're self-preservationists. You know, so they're just thinking about making sure they get reelected. But when you have these three gentlemen here who have other careers and thriving businesses outside of it, I mean, God forbid if one of our guys loses, they still have very successful businesses that they can just go back and continue to run.
Definitely.
So these type of people are, in my mind, now, of course, we don't 100% know what's in someone's heart, but people like these, to me, are more likely to be legitimate Americans who are just looking out for their countrymen because they don't
need the job.
They don't need it.
They don't have to be there to make money because, they got other things going on. So hopefully they've got the right thing in their heart. And they'll do the right thing when they get into office. But
I'm confident. Yeah, I'm actually quite excited about this primary. So whoever wins, I'm confident that they'll do a good job in Washington if elected. Not if, but when elected. I'm confident our people will win. Yes.
Yeah.
Debbie Stabenow is going to go. Yes. But moving right along, we also had Guzman. Who's running as one of the candidates for Secretary of State, has some very interesting points. We did have Mary Trader Lang on our program, and because there's three Secretary of State's candidates, him and Stan Grott is the other one who's running as well. So it'll be really interesting to see who wins because a lot of people, at least me, I wasn't fully aware of everything that the Secretary of State does. And it's a really important position that people need to care about this race because the Democrats, I guess they've kind of already, I guess I use the wrong term, but they've already christened who they want their person, you know.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, they Jocelyn Benson, they already have her. And there's a lot of concerns about what's going, especially the Democrats trying to push for open borders and all this kind of stuff. We want to make sure that our votes are protected, and the Secretary of State is a chief election officer, and that right there makes that race extremely important.
Absolutely. I like that that's what all three of them are campaigning on also, of like chief elections officer, have to protect the vote, which really everybody should be behind, right? So,
remember what happened in Detroit in the 2016 election?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just a complete debacle. And they re-elected the same county clerk or city clerk in
Did they?
Detroit. Yes.
so remind everybody, because not everybody remembers.
Well, so basically, it was just a debacle. They had like more people registered than actual citizens, I believe, or more votes than citizens. I mean, they couldn't count all the ballots. It just was a mess. Everything wasn't reported. It was just a lot of screw ups, and they reelected the same woman. Like, why?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, and it was funny because when I ride in my car and I was to like the radio stations, I would hear this. Their commercials for her. Let's keep going forward. Like, keep going forward to what? Crappiness? Like, okay. So that was a great meeting. So what else is going on, Mike, as far as bills?
As far as bills go, literally nothing. So I scoured the interwebs trying to find anything on local bills that were happening. And did I miss it? Is Congress on a break, or are they just bad at their jobs?
You know what? I looked at the same thing because typically I look at VoteSpotter
Yep.
and they tell who's doing what. And I did not. I didn't see anything.
So we're just going to assume that they are doing nothing this week because that's what Congress is good at. And if you guys know anything different, if there's anything that you really want to see us talk about, just let us know. Come over to the Facebook page, which we always run live, by the way. I know half of you guys listen via podcast on Fridays, and then the other half watches live on Facebook on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock when we air. So shoot us a note. Be like, hey, we want you guys to cover this bill, or we want you to cover that thing. So, come let us know if there's a bill you want us to cover.
Okay, so another interesting point about Paul Ryan.
Yeah?
Yeah, him not running for re-election.
I heard that just popped today. It's a big deal. So why, I think, is the question.
He said he wants to spend more time with his family.
You know that's crap.
I'm just saying what he said.
So, of course, here's my speculation on this, right, is that he's getting ready for a 2020 run. And he won't say that until after 18.
You really think he would do that?
What else would he be doing? He's at the height of his career, and he's wants to take time off for his family. Yeah, right.
Well,
Like, yes, he pushed through the tax plans that he wants, and yes, he's accomplished some in this fantastic role that he never really wanted. And, he's very modest about all that, which is great.
well, there's always some speculation we won't entertain on our program. So I think, we always look out for our fellow GOP members. So, I've heard prior to this, there was reports in the news about things. So, again, we always look out for our party. And at least in this segment here, we talk about bills. So we'll leave it at that. But he said that he's not running for re-election for his children. But I do not think. Only reason I mentioned that because I just don't think he's going to run in 2020. I don't. That's what I think. But
He's just going to step out of the spotlight forever and, not going to be in politics at all?
I'm not privy to any special information. I wish I had a Washington insider.
I'm not either, but I don't think.
I think Mike. I think you do have a Washington insider. So
Yeah, I'm besties with Trump actually, and Trump told me that Paul Ryan is coming for him. Anyways, it'll be interesting to see what happens with this guy.
I just don't know where to begin because, you have a great point. He's at the height of his career. The next logical step, at least for me, was to stay in power and then in 2024 run,
Yeah, 24? Why skip 2020? Because, come on, I'm trying to get you to say it.
Because, why would he do that?
All right, no, that's fair. So how about a Senate run? He could run Senate.
That's true.
I think that would be a move up, obviously, for him, and that could be very good.
Speaker of the House is third in line.
I agree as far as that
pretty
goes. But if he's in the House, then people are always trying to move over to the Senate, right? Because that's a little more prestigious and get a little bit more tenure. So
you got a point. You have a point. I don't know.
There's a lot of things that he could do for sure.
Yeah, you're right. I guess we're bantering at this point. Okay, moving on about the kids pro-gun movement.
Yes.
So this is interesting. So students, you want to talk about it, Mike?
Sure. Yeah. So in Colorado, there's a 30-minute walkout scheduled to support the Second Amendment. And this is scheduled by the students for the students. And you guys can tell how much publicity it's getting online, right? Because almost nobody's heard about it, which I think is just too funny. So this is exactly the opposite of what the students in Florida were doing, is that the students in Florida were anti-Second Amendment, and they were coming out, walking out of school, which is dangerous in a whole nother part of the story that we don't even have to get into. But and they got tons and tons of publicity because it fit the media's narrative, really, right? And here's these students doing the exact same thing, but pro-Second Amendment in Colorado. And they're being respectful about the whole thing, too, right? They're starting off their 30-minute walkout by having a moment of silence for the victims of school shootings. Class act, these kids, right? And you're just not hearing about it. And I think that's really a shame that the only people that are reporting on it is Ms. Fox.
Yeah, and then that's kind of, and a lot of this kind of is like the undercurrent of why Trump won. Because people are tired of being lied to. And I know sometimes I can sound, quote unquote, tinfoil hatty, but it's true that a lot of people feel this way because of things like this. So when the media is so dishonest, it really fuels stuff like that. Because people feel like, okay, something must be going on. Because these are actual legitimate events that are occurring, so why are you not reporting on that?
Right.
And other stories we'll get to in a little bit, these legit events that are huge, and it's not being reported. So they only report one side. Now, regardless if you think it's right or wrong, that's not the point. And that's kind of where I feel like a lot more Democrats, but you have some who are actually moving a little to the center. I know I tell you about Dave Rubin, the Rubin Report.
Yep.
Like, he was a guy who was liberal, and he's like, not so much that he's no longer believing in his liberal ideology to some extent, but he's moving away from the left in the Democratic Party. In a sense, it's like, you're not really looking out for Americans. You're like looking out for yourselves. So, and to go out of their way to silence the opposing viewpoints, and it's beyond, of course, the politicians, I expect that from them. So they're just doing what they do. But the media, that's really, really dangerous because they're one of the most influential forces. Actually, the media is the most influential source in our society. So for them to be propagandish is really, I think it's really horrible. It's
disappointing, right? But there's not much we can do about it, and we can just continue to report on the good news that's happening, right? And this is one instance of good news, is that the younger generation does care about the Second Amendment. They do care about the First Amendment, and they're going to stand up for it. And I think that they deserve more publicity than they're getting. And they're probably not going to reach David Hogg levels of publicity, and that's okay, because really we don't need to put kids in the spotlight all the time. They're supposed to be students. They're supposed to be there doing their own thing. But good for these kids for standing up for what they believe in and trying to make a difference.
Yeah. I heard some students out in California were organizing a pro-life walkout. But kind of what I was mentioning to you before is I wish more of us would, instead of responding to what they do, initiate our own things. You know, I would like, so if you're listening, if you got your thinking cap on, think about that. Instead of us always responding to them, let's get out in front of things and push our message, because there are people out there who are listening. Trust me. That is how Donald Trump won, because of the silent majority who exists, and they are actually growing, I would think, because a lot of people who I know typically lean more Democratic, they're sitting back going, wait a minute, wait just a second, these people are right.
And there's a lot of people out there like us, the silent majority, that are sick of this. They're sick of it in the media. That's why we need to talk about it more.
For sure.
And get it out there more.
Yep. So moving along with today's agenda, we have a series of interesting topics. So Nestle Water versus Flint Water. So I guess this what's going on is Nestle is planning on pumping hundreds of gallons of water per minute. Wow, 400 gallons of water per minute from a well, rather than 250 gallons they were pumping before per minute. And they're cutting off the Flint bottled water program.
At the same time. Yeah, so I think that this is just a horrible publicity move by our state's leadership, right? Is that in the same week, they allowed Nestle to bump up their pumping of water out of the ground almost double, from 250 gallons a minute to 400 gallons a minute, and almost for free. They get a permit that's several, I forget, hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars every year. So effectively, they're pumping the water out of the ground, they're bottling it, and they're selling it to us for thousands of times of profit for the little bit of plastic that they have to spend for every bottle and the even smaller amount of water that they have to pay for. And then in the same week, the governor shut down water handouts for the residents of Flint. So it was just today, Wednesday, at least 4 water distribution centers were permanently shut down. And I can't help but think, what kind of idiot does our leadership have to be to do those same things, both of those things at the same time?
Yeah, I want to investigate, and this is the skeptical. I want to investigate whose call it was, why they said they did it, because it's a new story. So it's a lot that has to go on. Like we talked last week, I think it was. Sorry, guys. When we talked about the Flint water thing, how everybody was all upset and angry at Governor Snyder. But it's like the media just conveniently omitted the key point that Genesee County has a drain commissioner whose job it is to ensure people get clean water. And the people who built the faulty pipes donated 70% of his campaign financing. So
Right.
that's
Crooked.
BS at the highest level.
It's straight crooked.
When the media reports things like these, and this kind of part of why a lot of people like us think the way we think. It's like, okay, something else. I think something else is going on. But we will find out, and we will talk about it when we do get to the bottom of it.
When we find out about it.
Yes, the operative word, when.
Yes, exactly.
When we find out, because typically if it comes out that it's more to the story, the media will report on it way later after all the hysteria has died down. Not only has this hysteria died down, but people are solid in their opinion. That's when the truth comes out. It's just it's so elementary. It's annoying. Anyway, moving on.
Well, hold on now. I think this raises there's one more thing I want to talk about with this, right? Is that the nice thing about the Nestle debacle, I guess we can call it, is that the state provided a public hearing and a public forum for people to submit what they had to say about it. And over 80,000 comments were submitted online about Nestle and them bumping up their water limit on how much they can pump out of the ground every day, out of our aquifers. So out of the, can't quite do math here, 81,000 comments that were submitted, 80,945 of them were against Nestle being allowed to pump more water out of the ground. And 75 of the public's comments were in support of Nestle being able to pump more water out of the ground. Now, I have never seen a public vote more lopsided than this here. And it just goes to show how horribly opposed the general public was to allowing Nestle to do this. And the question that this raises, I think, is how much should the public opinion weigh into what is essentially a scientific decision here, right? Mm-hmm. This groundwater, this aquifer water is yours and mine. Like, it is a river, is a lake that runs under all of our feet, and if it dries out or if it gets poisoned, then your and my drinking water is also going to be dried out or poisoned. And so to allow somebody to double their take rate on our aquifer, something that we collectively own, how much of a say should the public have in that? And clearly the answer that the government has come to here is the public shouldn't have any say in it. The government doesn't care that 80,945 people were against this and only 75 people were pro this. They went ahead and allowed Nestle to do it anyway.
Okay, let me ask you this, playing devil's advocate here, because I'm slightly ignorant on some of the particulars of this. Why are they against it? Do they feel we're going to run out of water? Kind of to what you said, you think it could potentially dry up, because is Michigan experiencing any type of drought? Or
so Michigan is not, right? But in other areas of the country where the aquifer is being pumped, we can look over to California, which you and I talk about a lot, obviously, right? It's a little bit different situation because California in a lot of parts is a desert. Right. And so the aquifer is the only way to get water. Mm. And on top of that, they have avocado and cashew farms there, which require just obscene amounts of water. Mm. And so in areas like California, where they're doing this sort of agricultural farming in the middle of a desert, that they have to get almost 100% of their water from the aquifer, they are draining the aquifer, and it is doing permanent damage to the local climate. And so that's just on aquifers. Obviously, there's an enormous controversy around fracking, too, where people say, oh, no, it doesn't have any effect on the underground system. And other people are completely opposed and say, oh, it does lots of damage. And you can tell that by seismic activity in the area and whatnot. So I am not convinced that the scientific community has come to a consensus on what sort of damage is done to the aquifer or to our communitive underground when things like this, Nestle pumping out hundreds of gallons every minute, has on our collective ecosystem. So, yes, there were scientists involved in this. Yes, they okayed the 400 gallons per minute, but at what point do we also get a say in this?
Okay, because I have more questions. Like, again, I'm
Yeah.
slightly ignorant on this. So, but are the underground water systems all connected? Like, is it? I know, guys. I mean, I didn't pay attention. I'm not a science and math person. I totally terrible at it. But so are they all connected? Because considering we have the Great Lakes and we have plenty of water, just with the water cycle and all being what it is, would we run out? Are we in? If we're not in threat of it? Even though I think the optics look bad considering the Flint thing,
Yes.
But is this outcry emotional and based on the general public's typical ignorance of the subject like mine? Or is this really based on a logical concern, considering that we're not like California and as you talked about we talked about before commercialized farming, so, and to do commercial farming in California makes sense. But anyway.
It's ridiculous, right? So the aquifers are huge, and there's a couple in the state, and they cover multiple counties, and they're mostly northwest. I'll see, or north-south. I'll see if I can post them up on the Facebook page later. And frankly, no, we're not in exact danger of them running dry. But what we should be wary of is that water is going to be the gas of the future.
Right.
And I know this is controversial, with global warming happening, some areas are going to get more dry, some areas are going to get more wet. And you can see it happening already is that the West has had several petitions to try and run a pipeline from Chicago, the Great Lakes, out west so that they can have water. And we as Michiganders and we in the Great Lakes have to defend our water source.
Yeah.
And cannot allow people like Nestle to literally ship it out of the state or allow people like Chicago to put in an enormous hose and start shipping it out west.
Yeah, and then you get into concerns about corruption and all kind of stuff. I mean, human beings are human beings, and I know I hate to I feel like I'm going into the tangent land, but this makes me think even about socialism. Like, where is she going with this? But just human beings are so corrupt. That's why you don't need centralized power. By nature, a lot of stuff we don't do is because we don't want to get caught.
Yes.
Or it's socially unacceptable, and we don't want to get frowned upon for doing it. So, to tamp with something like our water to send it out west, but this is a whole nother subject. But it's really, really interesting. It's something that I would like to study on more because, water is, you need water to live, so it's a really important subject. So that's definitely something that we could explore more later. So
I found the maps. I'm going to post them up to the Facebook page. They're beautiful. Have you ever wanted to know the bedrock aquifer's estimated yield or estimated drawdown rates? You will know. Go to the Facebook page. I'm posting it right now.
What do you mean by that?
It's like the replenish rate to the aquifers.
Okay.
Or like the estimated yield, I'm guessing, is how much you can draw out without depleting it. So
we're never gonna. I just don't think we'll ever run out. We rain enough. We have our grounds are pretty damp. At least seems like to me. But moving on. So, topic number 3, the IT crowd staffer edition. So, what is going on with that?
Boy, I just heard about this today, and maybe some of you guys have heard about it, but I cannot believe that this is not a bigger story. This would be all over the news, I feel like, if people actually knew about it. So, what happened here is that a Pakistani citizen was granted unlimited IT access to 44 House Democrats' computers and their staffers' computers and all of their emails and all of their files with no background checks.
What? I almost said a curse word.
Here is a foreign citizen that had no background checks that has pretty much unfettered access to our most sensitive information. So on top of that, if they had done the background checks, they would have discovered that this guy had over $1 million in bankruptcies and 12 LLCs. What kind of person is this? All right, so you say, well, that's, it sounds pretty bad, but is he a good guy? No, he's not a good guy. He took data from the staffers' computers that he was not supposed to have access to and disseminated it to who knows where. All that we know at this point is that he took data, and we don't know what he did with it. So he tried to leave the country with him and his wife and his kids to go back to Pakistan, and the federal government stopped him with some bank fraud charge and locked him up. Apparently, he was supposed to be arraigned last year, just about Thanksgiving time, and his court case got postponed. And as far as I know, still postponed. So this came out of Fox Business. I just read this. I don't know really why this is on Fox Business, but again, this is a foreign citizen that has had unlimited access to staffers and 44 Democratic House computers, emails, servers, everything.
Yeah, is this the same guy? I'm just trying to corroborate. Is this the same guy who had the connection with Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Yep.
Yeah, and that story. Yeah, it's weird how, and this kind of goes back to like an overall theme. And I know it seems like we're kind of like complaining a lot, but again, when Democrats do something so shady, I mean, it's just obviously shady, then it's like the media just buries the story. Now, I just cannot believe that they are all just that incompetent. I just refuse to believe all these people are just that highly ignorant to hire a foreign citizen with no background check to have access to countries' classified files and emails. These people this what fuels the tin hat community. Okay, this is our I was gonna say kryptonite, not this is our spinach, like Papa.
All right.
This kind of stuff because it doesn't make sense. At some point, when you have several stories that don't make sense, it's no longer in that what's the word I'm thinking of? It's no longer a question of competency. It's a question of conspiracy.
So are you implying here that the Democrats purposefully allowed a leak?
Well, no, I'm not saying I'm not accusing them all.
Okay,
that would be a definite overreach. But I'm thinking somebody.
Okay.
That he may have been. Here's Christine. I'm not speaking for Mike or the 14th. I'm saying he may have been. It may have been something else going on. Maybe it depends on who okayed him. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Who okayed him to be there? Was he passing off information to other individuals? Those are a lot of really good questions that we don't really have the answer to. So, I'm not going to say the entire, Democratic congressional, every congressperson is just as a complete fool or up to something shady. I'm not going to, that would just be a gross overreach. But right. I'm just saying, I think there may be an individual or a couple of individuals who it was more going on to the story because it just doesn't make it. Sometimes stuff just doesn't make any sense, and these people just cannot be this stupid. I just refuse to believe that.
It's insanity for sure. So stay tuned to hear more about that, obviously, when his trial comes up. And if they actually file charges against him for the data infringement, then maybe we'll see something more on this. But as it stands, that's what the story is. I take it he's still in prison for the bank fraud. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Now, the next thing, Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. Now, did you watch the hearing?
I really wished I'd watched the hearing. I did not.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, first of all, I did not watch it.
First off, why is he having a hearing? Why is he having a hearing?
Well, the whole thing with the Cambridge Analytica, apparently there was a whistleblower at Cambridge Analytica that was saying that Facebook was mining people's data to sell to different companies for various reasons, some for marketing purposes, but some were apparently political purposes. And the company Cambridge Analytica helped President Trump in his presidential campaign. Now, it's a little piece I want to throw in here. People need to remember they did the exact same thing for Barack Obama. But again, the media being God has been helping me to think before I speak. Oh my goodness. The media being what they are, of course, Barack Obama does something. It's totally fine. It's because he's the second coming of Christ in their mind, okay? But then President Trump does the exact same thing, and he is Lucifer. It's so stupid. It is so stupid. But nevertheless, so it's this whole issue with data, and he's selling our information, and I kind of always thought he was selling our information. I always knew it, not because I'm some genius, because how does somebody become a billionaire off of a free service? That just doesn't make any sense. And then you know how those little quizzes that people would take, like, see what's your spirit animal. And I said to myself, okay, this doesn't make sense. Or even, I quit sharing on Facebook. I used to share all the time. Like, I had this kind of epiphany like 3 days ago. Unless it's like a news agency that I'm personally familiar with, missing child, share. I'm not saying that it's just too much spyware going on whenever you click, whenever you open something, because most people do not. Many people aren't aware, but Facebook, they read your messages, like your inbox, your instant messages, they read those. So everything you do, like every bit of activity you ever had on Facebook is being monitored and being distributed for Mark Zuckerberg to become rich. So that is what it's all about. I mean, he's totally playing people. One good point was he used the booster seat.
See, that's honestly the only thing I saw about this whole testimony is that he used a booster seat. Who the heck cares? There were so many good memes on it, though.
Oh my God, Mike, it was so funny. And you know, the way he sits in his little chair, I know they probably like, what are these guys talking about today? You guys got to deal with us. So it was so funny. He's sitting in a chair just like this. Okay, of course, if you're listening to an audio version, you can't see what I'm doing. It was hilarious. He had a little booster seat. It was so cute.
Like, maybe everybody's got a booster seat. I don't know.
He has a sippy cup. Okay, let me stop. Hey, let's get back serious. But okay, at any rate, but aside from the booster seat. But I mean, it's definitely been, concern going on for a long time about the activities of Facebook and other social networking sites about them selling our information and the issues of privacy. I don't know if you guys are into body language. I am. I just find human behavior on every level just totally fascinating. But I remember seeing before, and this was like last year, well before I think more people kind of really start to think about it a little bit. But this couple, they were interviewing him, and it just came in my head. That's why I don't have it in front of me right now. But they were asking him about about privacy. And so I saw the person who was analyzing his body language was they kind of see patterns, in his body language. So he always would sit like very in control, very dominating. But when this particular this couple that were interviewing him started asking him about our privacy, he starts sweating. He kind of like slouched in his seat. He took off his sweater. His throat started constricting. He needed water. I mean, he just was yes. So he's not the whole choir boy act is a ruse. As we're on Facebook Live, right?
Oh, I don't know about that. See, I think he's a nerd, right? And he's no CEO. He's no chief executive officer of an enormous company. This is just some guy that came up with an idea, sits in his basement. And suddenly it made him $1 billion, or probably billions of dollars.
Well, yeah, I think that when he first started it, I do not think when he started Facebook, he had some nefarious agenda when he started it. I think it was just something fun to do. But I think as it grew in power, then I think the right people may have approached him and it's like, I can make a lot of money off of this, So, because it's been times before, like I've searched stuff off my Safari app on my phone, and then suddenly it's in my Facebook feed, that same item. I mean, so it's obviously something going on. So
cookies, man.
Yeah, it's so much. It's so much we can get into with that. But nevertheless, one thing I took away from this is that we need to start reading the fine print when we sign up for stuff.
Nobody's going to read the fine print. It's like 199 pages of size 1 font. Ain't nobody going to do that.
I mean, yes, Mike, you have a point, but maybe we need to start. You know what? Maybe we should do like a community, like somebody actually takes the time to read it, or some bodies maybe like section by section and explain it that way people can know. Somebody could actually. That's a business. I shouldn't say this on air.
That's a great idea.
I'm gonna stop talking before somebody steals my idea.
No, it's like legal forms for she's giving me a look right now.
Yeah.
Like, you stop talking. No, that is a great business idea.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So,
Bam.
So yeah, people need to start reading that. And then this was the other part that was interesting. Ted Cruz, when he talked to him about censoring conservatives, which we know they shadow block conservatives. So and Mark is like, wait, what? Silicon Valley is left leaning? Like, shut up, man. Like, no. You guys are shadow blocking people. It's actually a person that I'm friends with on Facebook. Now, especially if you're in politics, you become friends with people that you've never met personally, but you corresponded with them for extended period of time. So you kind of get to know them on some level. But another person I follow, his name is Christopher Harris. He has a website called Unhyphenated American. And he was on CNN on Don Lemon's program, and he was on Fox News. Facebook has listed his videos as explicit. Yeah, they listed his videos as explicit. And so, the whole thing with Diamond and Silk, these two women who are Trump supporters, how they listed their content as dangerous to the community. On what grounds? On what grounds? And then when Ted Cruz grilled him, he was like, I'm not aware of this. Well, Silicon Valley is left-leaning. Like, at some point, there's a lot of options. It's like, okay, so do people no longer really want to use Facebook anymore? But it's so popular, people feel like they kind of have to if you're doing anything publicly. So it's the octopus.
Well, that's the free market opportunity, right? If you guys don't like Facebook and you don't want to use it, then start up a social networking a company that isn't social and doesn't share your information. Like, the whole point is stupid, right? People are upset that a social networking website is like sharing their information. That is literally the point of a social networking site,
Well,
right?
Well, it is, but the whole point is you determine who gets your information. You don't. I don't think most people are aware. I can say when I signed up for Facebook was like 2008. So I've had a Facebook. Really, it's been that long.
Yeah, me too.
So you'd had a Facebook for like 10 years. I didn't sign up my Facebook for my information to be sold. I've signed up for it to connect with family members. So now you're at a point almost where it's like, okay, if I delete my Facebook, for one, this project we're doing right here, I can't, because we promote our show house, or
right.
I don't have a Facebook, or like certain friends and family members who live out of state.
You're still willingly giving over your information, though. Like, nobody put a gun to your head and said,
yeah, of course,
all right,
no.
Christina, you got to put your first name and your last name here in this website, and then you got to put what city you live in, and then you got to post pictures of what food you eat, and then you got to post pictures of your family. And if the government came to you and forced you to do that, we'd be terrified. And here we are giving it over willingly to a private company that we just hope that they're not going to do anything with it. Of course they're going to do something with it.
Yeah, you know what? I think since social media is a newer, and not new, but it's a newer phenomenon, I don't think people really thought it through. They just thought it was a cool website to sign up for, and it was something to do. And that's all it was. And obviously it's become more than that. That's why companies like Facebook and Twitter shadow block conservatives. And again, as Senator Cruz pointed out, I'm waiting to see them do it to some liberals, because they don't. And then he said, we want to guard against hate speech. See, that's the whole problem. What is hate speech? Well, who determines what's hate speech? So...
Well, see, there's an ongoing lawsuit now with Prager University, right? Actually,
YouTube.
You might have told me about this against YouTube, Because YouTube's doing the same thing as Facebook. They're either shadow blocking or completely demonetizing right-leaning sources. And now they're actually getting sued for it, which is great.
I think it's wonderful. And I think, again, this goes back to why you have more people who naturally are more liberal, kind of like they're up to something, because why are you just trying to stop people? My whole thing is I like debating people, because if my points are stupid, then point them out. And actually, if you're very confident in your argument or your position, you wouldn't mind opposing viewpoints, because that just shows the strength in your argument.
Absolutely.
They're blocking opposing viewpoints for a reason, because they're trying to centralize power and they want everybody to think one way.
Yep.
Okay.
You see, we're getting a little off track, but it's the same thing, right? With YouTube is shadow blocking and stuff, is that they started restricting all sorts of gun videos also. And so you can't have any videos now of like how to disassemble and reassemble weapons.
I didn't know that. That's news to me now.
And the funny part is that those videos are now starting to flee to other websites that show videos, not typically for distribution of videos
adult
about guns.
Entertainment
but
videos.
Yeah.
And they blocked them too.
And they blocked them too, which I think is hilarious, right?
Where's the morality there? I guess they took the moral high ground. Yeah. Moving on before we go in the wrong direction with this one. Also interesting. Okay, more. I think I'm going to start a segment called the tinfoil hat moment. Because here we go again. So it was reported, Judicial Watch, which is a wonderful organization. They do a lot of good things to point out, oh my God, I love them, to point out things that are going on. And it's true, they're conservative, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong. So it was an article posted in Fox News about Obama's State Department used tax dollars to fund Soros group in Albania. So George Soros is a guy who we've talked about before, so we don't need to get into the details of George Soros. So the Obama administration sent U.S. taxpayer funds to a group backed by billionaire George Soros to fund left-wing activities in Albania. I think it's also important. This just popped in my brain. Sorry, guys. My head just like information just go bing, bing in my head. But Macedonia, they want to kick his organization out the country. They couldn't stand him. I know it's like, what? Where's she talking about Macedonia?
Yeah, how did we get from Albania to Macedonia?
Well, I'm just pointing in that how George Soros is involved in politics in a lot of other countries. I think it's worthy of noting that George Soros helped Barack Obama get elected. It's also worthy of noting that George Soros got Justin Trudeau elected, the PM of Canada. It's also worthy of noting that George Soros tried to get Hillary Clinton elected. So George Soros is the man who had, and then also George Soros is helping to fund the caravan. Remember the caravan we talked about last week, guys? So as you see, George Soros has those little crusty fingers in a bunch of different things. So the issue is that the Obama administration, his State Department, was using taxpayer dollars to fund left-wing groups in Albania. Okay, first of all, what's the whole Mueller investigation going on? You know what I'm saying? So how is he? And it's common knowledge, shall I say, that he even was against Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. So I mean, his State Department helped to influence politics in countries all the time. And this was something that he did. But again, the media being, Obama is the second coming of Christ. So they're not going to report on those things. Or if this dude is going to be just an honorable mention, if that. So again, Judicial Watch obtained 32 pages of records from the Justice Department and stating this to be true. Now, the new documents show that U.S. aid funds is part of the State Department, and the U.S. Agency for International Development was sent through the agency's civil society project to back Soros' left-wing East-West Management Institute through U.S.A.'s Justice for All campaign. So our tax dollars. So when the Democrats cry about we don't have more money for the poor are getting poor, like Bernie Sanders, the poor need help.
That's a good Bernie impression.
Yeah. Oh, you should. I have some really. Okay, let me stop with my other impressions. But Bernie Sanders says all this. You know what, Sanders? If we quit, I'm not going to get on illegal immigrants. I'm going to leave that alone this week. But maybe if we quit putting money on stupid stuff like this, we would have more money. Okay, think about $8.8 million. How many poor children could go through college with that money? I'd much rather that money helps them. You know what I'm saying? If we quit spending money on pet projects and global political, why? And this is like people who talk about globalism. So you guys, George Soros, who's one man from Hungary, getting into politics of like 6 different countries I just rattled off. The U.S. were 4. Russia wanted to throw him in jail a long time ago too. That's a whole nother story in itself. But just now, Canada, U.S., Macedonia, and Albania. These are 4 countries I just mentioned. Just in this conversation of his politics he's meddled in. And they're propping up left-leaning groups. This is what they're doing. So anyway, to make a long story short, the Justice Department, and this also gives them the projects or bureaucrats. This is why we don't like the government to grow, because you have these bureaucrats who aren't voted into power. So they're just put in power by people and they stay there. They're not decided by the voters. So the Justice Department and, the Soros group, like, oh, well, the U.S. has always protected democracy around the world, and this is what they do. So all of a sudden now it's a problem. Like, no. And then this is the interesting quote from the organization that's trying to say this is just like a political thing. So again, the Obama administration spent quietly spent at least $9 million in taxpayers' dollars in direct collusion with left-wing billionaire George Soros-backed socialist government in Albania. Okay, this is what Judicial Watch said. In response, sorry guys, I'm going on. So
where did the money go to? What are they doing?
Well, they were giving out surveys. Sorry guys, I lost my spot in my notes, but they were supposedly helping to survey the citizens to see how they felt about their government. That's what is said. But the organization was saying that they were just helping them. And they were saying, like I said, I lost my spot in my notes. But the report noted the embassy's public affairs section, here I go, sorry guys, has not received any funds from the Open Society Foundation to support any projects or activities, and that the public affairs section has not provided any funds to the Open Society Foundation to support their projects or activities. So they were saying that it wasn't support any other activities, but just this type of polling thing to see how people felt. I mean, how do we really know it's in Albania? Say for example, we did fund that. So maybe it was money that the Open Society Foundation would have spent towards something that would have spent towards that. They can now put it to something else. You see what I'm saying? So just say, for example, if I had an organization and I'm doing something shady, and so Mike gives me $10 million. So that $10 million I initially was going to spend on that project, I can now put it towards something else because Mike funded this. And then the thing is, George Soros is a billionaire. Why are we giving him anything? This man is a billionaire. Why are we giving his organization money for political activities in Albania? That is beyond. That is just. That is just too much for me. That is very, very frustrating. With a particular quote I was looking for that I thought was really great, but I've seemed to have lost my spot when they were discussing communism and democracy. Well, I guess we could just move on because I've completely lost my spot in my notes. But it was a really good point that I want to make, and I forgot because I'm human. So, Mike, you can, I guess, take it from here. But it's just the shady situation. And considering the whole thing with Mueller and all that, it just seems a little bit suspicious. You know, I have some theories that I guess I'll leave off because they're not proven. I'll leave them alone.
No, I think that's great. This is definitely something that needs to be looked into, right? Because if it's true, then it's a big deal that we're donating taxpayer dollars to Albania for something. Not that we don't already give away billions of dollars to seemingly every country in the world for every toothbrush they need, right? But
this is the thing I can't stand. Don't you? As soon as I said I couldn't find it, now here is the note I was looking
all right,
for.
what is it?
Okay, so this is a quote actually from the article. It says, this is from the Open Societies Foundation, what they're saying. For decades, there has been broad bipartisan agreement in Washington, D.C. on the need to promote democracy and human rights abroad. Of late, there has been an unfortunate and misguided effort to politicize this process, the spokesperson for the Open Society Foundation. Now, again, this is George Soros' organization. He is a billionaire. Why are we taking hard-working taxpayer dollars to fund a billionaire's political agenda? Let's keep in perspective, Barack Obama, this man helped Barack Obama get elected. So please stop acting like he's Christ and he doesn't have any ulterior motive in sending this money to the man who helped get him elected. Please stop, people. Moving on, the Open Society Foundation and the U.S. government shared an interest in helping Albania and other similar situated countries transition. Here is the part. Transition from communism and democracy, and in promoting an independent judiciary. Okay, this is my question. I looked at it like 5 times. I was like, from communism and democracy. You would think it would be communism to democracy.
Well, that's 2 different things, right? One is a system of government. One's like a system of economy, essentially. Because communism is not necessarily a form of government. It's a form of economic model.
Okay, right. So they said, help me, Mike, because I'm confused. It said situate a country transition from communism and democracy. Okay, I can see transition from communism, but why the and democracy? Why are you transitioning from democracy?
Well, you can have a democratic communist society because communism is just a redistribution of wealth, right? Where there's no private property and all funds go to the government redistributes all the funds and supplies. And so if the people have a democratic or republican system that vote to do such, then you can have a republic communist system or you can have a democratic communist system.
I'll have to inquire on this further.
So like one's a system of government and one's a system of economy, essentially.
So you're saying there's a difference between a communist government and a communist economy?
Yes.
I can't rebut because I'm not familiar with that. To me, it seems one and the same.
Okay.
But I'm not saying he's wrong because I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna leave it there.
So yeah, there's the discrepancy. So.
It just
so what are they
sounds
moving
strange.
from? They're moving from a democratic
It
communist
says
society
transition
to,
from communism and democracy. And
to
then
what?
It doesn't say. I would think it would say transition from communism to democracy, not and.
Huh.
That's the part that's throwing me off.
That's weird. Yeah, because you can have a dictatorial communist society like China,
Right,
where they
right.
have one leader and a communist
For the rest of
society.
his life.
And I think the USSR, right, because it stands for United Soviet States Republic. So it was a republic. Is that what the USSR stood for? Come on,
United
somebody.
Soviet Socialist Republic. I
There
don't
you
know.
go.
I think. I don't know. I could be wrong.
We need some old timers in here. Can
Yes.
you guys help us out here? Because Christina and I weren't really doing political science back in 1989.
I was 4.
Nope. Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
Okay.
We're so wrong.
Yeah.
But it's a bunch of republics, base word Republican. So they vote. They have a Republican-based system, but they're communists.
Yeah, I don't know, but it just, again, the whole thing is, the whole point of what we're saying, it's just because this is something that happens. So the Open Society Foundation is saying, well, the U.S. has always done this, but again, who's the money going to? The organization. Soros is a billionaire, and Soros helped get Barack Obama and several other people globally elected. And let's not forget, at the World Economic Forum, how Soros rambled on about how Donald Trump, he's not going to last. He's not going to last. So on top of it, this man is working to overthrow our president. It's like, this stinks. This stinks to high heaven. Moving right on, really quick. We got a few minutes left that I thought was really interesting. About $1 billion of Michigan's welfare fund went to college students who weren't poor. So yeah, it's the website. It's a new called bridgemichigan.com. It's they're a news source, but what seems pretty interesting about this news source, it appears thus far, they seem to be really committed to just giving us the story with the facts and letting people come up, because their tagline is news and analysis from the Center for Michigan. So I think that's really helpful, because even though, I love my party, I'm very conservative, but at the same time, I'm not saying that they never make mistakes. You know what I'm saying? So it's important to hear objective perspective. So they seem like a pretty decent news outlet. So I thought I would just kind of mention that. But nevertheless, that's horrible for $1 billion to go to people who are poor. I actually knew individuals who had a bridge card, and I'm pretty sure everybody is aware what that is, but just in case you're not, I just don't want to assume, but it's like a card where your funds are loaded to, your welfare funds are loaded to. I knew people who had jobs and were childless, who were on welfare. And I'm like, well, yeah, I can get one. I'm like, but that's wrong. Like, that's disgusting, And it's just, so a lot of times when Republicans talk about welfare reform, and here comes, oh, this is horrible. What about the poor people? What about these people? You know what I'm saying? Like, reform isn't inherently bad, because why should tax dollars go to helping people? So the kind of, and also this is important to mention, because President Trump signed an executive order dealing with, if you're on welfare, you have to get a job. And, you have some people acting like that's so terrible. Why? What makes you think I should take care of you? I mean, I work extremely hard. I find it frustrating, but that's not the point. But they have some interesting facts about welfare, specifically in Michigan. By the way, this is specific to Michigan. 16% of Michigan's household and 22% of Michigan's children currently live in poverty. It's pretty bad. Another 25% of Michigan households that's on top of that, live above the poverty line and have jobs but live paycheck to paycheck with no savings, according to the Michigan Association of United Ways. Now, a lot of times when you hear those statistics, it's a lot to think about, because when they say people are living paycheck to paycheck, I know a lot of people who are living above their means.
Yes, like everybody.
So that, a lot of times, I think people have to learn to not think so emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very difficult thing. People are highly emotional because they hear that. It's like, oh, that's horrible. But I know plenty of people, and I've been guilty of it too. I'm not going to act like I haven't. Buying stuff that I can't afford. I think everybody's been there once or twice, some worse than others. So That's something to consider, because one time I was listening to a program. I forgot what program I was listening to. And I think the man was like, him and his wife made like $90,000 or $100,000 a year, and they were living like paycheck to paycheck. And it's like, what are you guys doing with your money?
Right.
Like,
well, it's because they bought a $300,000 house, right? We all know people like that are making $10 an hour and buy, have a brand new car and have a brand new house, and there's a nice new neighborhood, and it's just like, you're clearly living past your means. And when I say everybody does it, I don't mean literally everybody does it. I mean, take a look at 2007, 2008, when 60% of mortgages were underwater, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, oh God, we got to wrap up really quick. But it was just we can maybe pick up. But it was just interesting about that. So those are some things to consider when it comes to welfare. That it's not inherently bad when there's welfare reform, because it's only fair that people work or be in school. I mean, I don't understand how that is a problem. That people, if you're you have to contribute to society. You can't just breathe. I mean, we're all valuable. We're all God's children, But at the same time, you have to do more than just breathe. That is the point. So I'm glad President Trump signed that executive order, because go to work. I work.
And with that, we want to thank you guys for listening to Right on 14th. Come like our Facebook page or send us an email, righton14th@gmail.com.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful day.
See ya.
1 second. Facebook.
The face bag.
Facebook.
All right, now we got to get out of here.
So, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was good. See?
Yeah.
That didn't go bad.
Mike, you were right.
It was fine.
Yeah.